So in my last video, I made a guide about elemental mastery and how elemental mastery, depending on the reaction that you want to create, its value matters. But what are these elemental reactions? These make a very huge core part of Genshin Impact's combat system. And so that today we're going to go through the basics of each elemental mastery. We're not going to go through the deep dive of like how to optimize the damage for this reaction or how to maximize the damage for that. There are many videos for that. I believe that in order for you to reach that height, you need a well-rounded base to start off, and that's what this video is. It is just to look at the basics of each elemental reaction and how to progress from there. Welcome to this video. Hope you guys like it. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment, all that stuff. I also stream live on Twitch. It's in the description below. Let's get it started. So to start it off, let's talk about the various elemental reactions in the game. All right, this chart looks very confusing. Let me try to simplify this. As we all know, there are 7 elements in Genshin, and while not every element will react with another, right? Generally, when 2 or more compatible reactions match together, we get a reaction. Okay, so the reason why I say it's at least 2 is because there are some reactions like Burgeon and Hyperbloom that require 3. So those are the rare exceptions, but in general, this is what reactions are. When 2 or more compatible reactions match together to produce an effect. Now, not all reactions are the same, right? In Genshin, there are 3 types of reactions. We have amplifying reactions, transformative reactions, and additive reactions. So to make this as simple as possible, I'm just going to go through what are the various reactions in these classifications and why are they classified as such, right? Because among the 3 classes, their reliance on elemental mastery is very different. So let's talk about the very first one, amplifying reactions. The 2 reactions that come under this class of reactions would be Vaporize and Melt. So Vaporize is Pyro and Hydro, and Melt would be Pyro and Cryo. So I just want to show you guys this. Not this, sorry. I'm going to show you guys this. This looks like this is the general formula for damage. It's very confusing. I want you to ignore everything and just look at this. Right, this is the amplifying reaction. And this is the amplifying reaction in the equation. So, as you can see, it's multiplicative, right? So this value is multiplied by whatever comes beforehand. Your damage, your crit, your stats, your bonuses, everything. That all makes up all this. And then the amplifying reaction, and then whatever that value is then multiplied by your amplifying reaction. If you were to look in game, you would click on your details and stuff, and you click on elemental mastery. It will show you this thing, all right? Depending on what EM you have on that character. For example, on my Alatino, she has 79, which is not ideal, but it's still pretty okay. So 14.9. What this means is that because of a 14.9 value, through the calculations that the game has done for you, this is my melt or my vaporize damage from Arlecchino will be increased by 14.9%. So you can look at amplifying reactions in that way. Now let's go back to this. All right. So for all reactions in general, whose EM is viable is the one that should be valued the most. It will be the one that's creating the reaction. I have a video. I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, so here is a recording of Around His Pyro Abyss. Over here, I have Yanfei, who's Pyro. I have Xingqiu, who is Hydro. Kaya, who is Cryo, and I just put Zhongli there just for fun. All right. So in this case, this is the basis for both the melt and vaporize reaction. So in this case, right, Yanfei is going to be proccing both reactions. So the person whose EM should be valued will be Yanfei, because Yanfei is the one who's going to spark the Vaporize and the Melt reaction. Okay, let me show you guys. So first we have Xingqiu. Xingqiu puts wet on the opponent, right? And then Yanfei will basic attack, and she creates a Vaporize. So you see the Vaporize damage, the 3,247 damage. That is the damage that was created from Vaporize. So because she's the one that ignites, okay, funny because fire, right? Because she's the one that procs that reaction, it's based on her elemental mastery. So now I'm going to play this out. All right, oops, not Zhongli. Kaya now puts cryo on the enemy. And now Yanfei is going to do the same thing again. So now she's going to shoot straight at the guy. And you notice that, okay, it didn't crit, but you can notice that was the melt reaction. The word melt appeared. All right. So going back to the web page, right? As we look at amplifying reactions, okay. So that's basically it. It's just a multiplicative value based off whatever stats you have above, right? So it's just an additional bonus that you get, all right, through a certain percentage. This is also why you don't want to just solely build elemental mastery on a vape or a melt character. Sorry, excuse me. The reason for that is because you have other stats that you want to play with. You have stats like crit, you have stats like damage bonus, attack, HP or whatever the character scales with. All the talent levels. All these things are all important. And that's why there is a hard number. In general, the value of like 150 to like 250 to 300 is a good spot for elemental mastery. Once you hit past 300, unless a character scales with elemental mastery, which for my knowledge, none of the hydro, pyro, or cryo characters scale based on that. Because now, from my knowledge now, then we scale with elemental mastery based on the stats. So I think that usually it's what we call diminishing returns, where the higher the elemental mastery stat, the less bonuses you will see. And especially and you could have given those stat lines to crit, for example. All right, so another thing that you want to take note of is this reaction multiplier. You'll notice there's a 2 and a 1.5. Just something about like vaporize and melt. You will notice, you may have heard of this thing called forward and reverse melt of it. Basically, if the multiplier is 2, it's forward, 1.5 is reverse. So in the case of hydro, this is basically the order of applying reaction. So it's whether you apply hydro first or you apply pyro first, for example. So in the case of vaporize, if you were to apply hydro on pyro, that is a forward vape. Whereas for melts, if you apply pyro on cryo, that will be forward melts. And of course, the reverse is true. Let me show you this example. So there's the same example with Xingqiu, Kaya, and Yanfei being the hydro proctor. So as I mentioned, because Yanfei is the one that's proccing both reactions, we can get to see the difference between reverse and forward reactions. So in this case, you see Xingqiu, he puts the hydro. So this is going to be a vaporized reaction. And because she's applying the pyro, that means that this is going to be a reverse it's going to be a reverse vape reaction. So you can see 3.2k damage. Now, you're going to see the case with Kaya. All right, so the freeze aura, now we have 4.3k damage. Right, so ultimately, this just means that I mean, you can see the numbers difference. In my opinion, not that big of a difference. You can reverse melt, you can reverse vape. It's just a 0.5 loss, and I don't think it's that valuable if you build your characters properly. So I think this is this is basically Amplifying Reactions, Melt and Vape. Very, very good. You know, especially with the latest character Alkino. Many people have gone for a Vape team with her. And yeah, like I said, as long as you know how much EM to build and who to build the EM on, yeah, like I said, in this case, because Yanfei is the one that's blocking the reactions, I want my Yanfei to have a decent amount of EM. Let me show you the stats of my Yanfei since we're at it. Right, my Yanfei is not even really built, but let's see. 213. All right. We look at this, 36.7%. So yeah, you can see where this is going. All right, the second one is additive reactions. Okay, let's look at the formula again and look at how confusing it is. Basically, let's look at this. Additive react-based damage bonus is added to this value. Basically, what additive reactions is just a bonus reaction given to your damage, right? Side note, the additive reactions aren't the only thing that give additive damage, but just for the sake of this conversation, yeah, all right, the additive reactions, there's basically two. They come under the same family called Catalyze. All right, Catalyze includes Quicken, Spread, and Aggravate. The names are very, very confusing. Do not worry about it. Basically, Quicken is the reaction that you get when you combine Electro and Dendro. All right, the character that gets hit by both will have a Quicken aura, and that Quicken aura, right, as the character has it, once you use either an Electro or Dendro attack, right, it produces a separate new reaction. Spread if you use Dendro, and Aggravate if you use Electro. You can see there's also a different reaction multiplier. This is very, very minute. It's just a 0.1% difference. You don't need to worry about it. The one thing I would say though is that additive reactions, when it comes to this Catalyze and Quicken and stuff, your level is very important because your level does not have a different multiplier. All right. So will most reactions with EM as well, as you'll see from Transformative Reactions. But yeah, basically that's that. It's actually a lot more simpler because a lot more simple to explain. Let me show you what catalyzed reactions are. All right, so this is a double Dendro, double Electro situation. So we're just going to put out some Electro with Raiden. And then Nikida's then going to put out some Dendro. So you will see that the first thing that happens is Quicken. All right, so the first thing that happens is Quicken because Nahida's Dendro reacts with Raiden's Electro that she's already put from the very beginning. And then you see another Aggravate damage. The Aggravate damage comes from Raiden's skill. And then you will see there will be a separate damage that comes up. The 5,000 damage that you see. Okay, so basically, so obviously this is a bit fast because of how Raiden works. But because Nahida with her basic, she puts out the Dendro aura on someone who already has the Electro aura. That creates the Quicken reaction. And then because of Raiden's skill, that procs whenever anyone uses the basic any attack, then you will see the the Electro attack that causes the 5,000 damage due to Aggravate. Now, of course, the reverse is also true. Okay, it's a bit hard to recreate that because of so Quicken. Yeah, you see there's a spread damage. You can't see it's under the Quicken word. So yeah, usually there's a lot of damage that comes up. This is due to the nature of spread and Aggravate. It favors a lot of teams that use fast attacks. So that's the reason why Kachin got buffed, because Kachin is very fast, all right? And because additive damage is basically bonus damage, if she's hitting more, she's going to apply more bonus damage, right? So that's basically how it works. Right? You can see the Quicken and the spread through Nahida. Then there's Aggravate that comes from Raiden. So obviously, whoever procs the reaction, that's who the elemental mastery is based on. So for those spread reactions, that's based on Nahida's elemental mastery. But whenever Raiden's special procs an aggravate reaction, that is down to Raiden's. That's down to Raiden's EM. Right, so you can see that at this point I switched to Alhaitham. Does the same thing. He applies Quicken on somebody who already has Electro to proc the Quicken 16k damage, and then he attacks one more time to proc spread, which is 14k damage. So yeah, I think that's that for the video showcase. So yeah, basically you don't need to care a lot about the formula. Just note that it gives you additional damage based on EM. So it follows a very similar concept because you still want to crit with your attacks. So that's why you still want to build crit and attack on your characters. I would say like for Dendro in particular, so like Alhaitham in particular, because Alhaitham skills on both attack and EM, you could push the EM side a little bit. Let me show you how my Alhaitham is built. So my Alhaitham has about 308 elemental mastery. So in general, he because he skills on both EM and attack, so he can afford that leeway. Whereas on someone, let's say someone like Fisher, I would say like follows more the same principles as follows more the same principle as a Vaporize or Melt a team, where you want to keep them within the 200 range, but like anything more than 300 will be diminishing returns. So yeah, like I said, Alhaitham is more of a special case. So I wouldn't really like be so concerned about it because it scales on both attack and EM. But for a character like Fisher who only scales on attack, then the EM stat would definitely have like I said, diminishing returns. So I think it's something that you want to take note of as you're building your characters. All right, we come to the most complicated and not quite complicated, the longest part. All right, because in theory they are not very hard to build. All right, transformative reactions. All right, Burgeon, Hyperbloom, Overload, Bloom, Shattered, Electro-Charged, Swirl, Superconduct, Burning, and everything that comes in between. Okay, so transformative reactions, very, very simple. Just build EM. Okay, you just build EM on transformative reactions. That is because transformative reactions do not crit. They also do not take into account like the defense of the character. So transformative reactions tend to focus solely on the level of the character, and also the EM. So in general, for characters that proc transformative reactions, like your Swirlers, your Hyperbloomers, you want them to be 90 because that's where the multiplier is the highest, obviously, because it's the max level. But the only thing that matters is the elemental mastery. No attack is needed. No whatever is needed, right? No attack, none of those stats, because it doesn't crit. You don't need to build crit, and so yeah, just take note of what you're doing. And so we're going to go through these are the reactions. All these reactions, the person who's just as the same as always, the person who's proccing the reaction would be the one that will want the highest elemental mastery. So let's go through each one bit by bit. All right, so the first one to talk about is Swirl. What is Swirl? Swirl is basically the reaction of Animal. It's Animal's only reaction. It's his reaction with any of the 4 main elements. I won't say main, but you know what I mean. Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, and Electro. So what does he really do? All right, let me show it to you. So in this case, we have Sucrose as the animal character. All right, the other 3 characters are based on the other on a swallowable element. In this case, Pyro and Hydro. So what's going to happen is that in this case, Xingqiu puts out a Hydro element, a Hydro aura on the character, and now, what am I doing? Okay, so now Sucrose is about to take a turn. Sucrose uses a skill, all right, and she's about to swirl. So what is being swirled, right? So what's being swirled? All right, she swirls the Hydro element, All right. All right. She swirls the hydro element. So while it obviously has its own animal damage, you can see this swirl word. This swirl word creates a vaporized reaction. So this is quite a special case. Creates a vaporized reaction. Over here, you see another swirl and creates another reaction as well. So, yeah, as you can see, because this character has pyro, as Sucrose attacking him, he keeps swirling. He keeps creating that pyro reaction on top of the animal reaction as well. All right, so you can see that again. So you have that base high that you can have the base animal attack from her basic, and then you also see that the pyro attack was also being done. That is the swirl. All right, see another swirl. You can see everyone now around them has pyro. So that's basically swirl. Just as you've seen earlier, if you swirl an element on someone who has another element, then you'll create a reaction. So in this case, you saw earlier that the enemy that had that pyro, because it was swirled hydro, that's why you had a vaporized reaction. So the next one, we'll talk about bloom. Okay, so bloom is basically the reaction of hydro and dendro. So what's going to happen is that this reaction creates something that we call a dendro core, as you'll see later. So what is dendro core? Dendro core is basically like a bomb. All right, it's basically a bomb that you play on the field, and then after a certain set of time, it will explode. All right, so let's look at this. So in this case, we're going to start this round with Nahida. Nahida is going to put out dendro, and then we have Barbara as the hydro applier. All right, so they all have dendro. Look at what's going to happen. All right, as Barbara attacks, you can see all these little seeds. These are what we call dendro cores. So the dendro cores, when undisturbed, would just explode after a while. Now there are two reactions in play that can actually not say, see after a while they explode. So you see the dendro damage at the back. All right. There are two reactions that you can do to not only speed up the cores attacking your enemy, but also give additional bonuses. So as you can see now, we're putting more seeds on the ground. And now Bennett, using pyro, creates a new element called Burgeon. So basically what Burgeon is that if you apply pyro onto a dendro core, it basically explodes. It does more damage. It does have recoil damage. So be careful if you're using this element, that you want to at least have a bit of healing. But yeah, so let's tune it back a little bit. When you create the dendro cores, if you want the cores to just explode, that means just the bloom reaction. That is based onto the person who created its EM. So in this case, Barbara. All right, so the cause damage will be based on Barbara. This is not relating to the Nilu team. The Nilu team is an entirely different mechanic. And then with the Burgeon, that will be based on Bennett's reaction, Bennett's elemental mastery. So yeah, the amount of damage from Burgeon will depend on the pyro applier. So let's look at the other the cousin to Burgeon. All right, so the cousin to Burgeon would be the reaction called Hyperbloom. So Hyperbloom is basically follows the same concept, except that Hyperbloom uses electro instead of pyro. So in this case, we have Cookie Shinobu as the electro character. What's going to happen is that the same thing, you create the dendro cores, and then we're going to switch to Cookie right now. She's going to special. And look at what happened. So you had a Hyperbloom reaction. Sorry, it's a bit blur. But you see that the cores now shoot out like missiles onto the enemy and does damage. So that's basically a Hyperbloom. All right. And in this case, Hyperbloom would be very dependent on Cookie's elemental mastery. Now we want to talk about the last of the dendro reactions, which is burning. All right. So burning is basically the combination of dendro with pyro. what they basically, how many of you have ever walked into the field of fire and gotten like fire damage just by walking around? Basically, burning is more of a prolonged version of that effect. Basically, what happens is that when you put Dendro out and you put the Pyro out, basically it's just more burning damage, as you can see from the enemies at the back. This also skills off EM, generally not the most favorite, like on its own, not the most favorite. People use this thing called like a burning melt, where you do melt onto a character with burning aura, yeah, just for like more damage and stuff. So like yeah, burning is not a thing that you will probably do on its own. So yeah, those are the Dendro reactions. Let's move on to more reactions that rely on other elements. Okay, the next one we have is Superconduct. So Superconduct is basically the combination of combination of cryo and electro. What it basically does is that it creates an aura under the character, and then your physical attacks will be increased. Well, basically, the physical resistance will be decreased, hence your physical attacks will increase. Yeah. So look at this. So Kaya's going to show it to you. So Kaya on his basic attack does 887 damage. Okay, so let's attack the safe enemy. So now we have so now he has cryo, and then Cookie does the ult, so he has the Superconduct. Now if I attack, it'll be 1000 damage. So if it's with the first combo. First combo did 1049, which is more than the 800 that we did earlier. So that's basically Superconduct. It's more for those it's basically the basis of how you want to even play a physical DPS. That's up to you. I personally think a physical DPS is out of the matter. You either play Framinate with your 4-star or Eula as a 5-star. It's not really the best reaction, but it's a you do you kind of situation. So next one we're going to talk about is Overload. What's Overload? Overload is a combination of Pyro and Electro, and it basically creates like an explosion. Yeah, that's about it. So you see the Overload creates an explosion and the people are thrown back. That's basically what Overload does. It is considered similar to a blunt attack. You know how when your enemies are frozen or those enemies that have like rocks, like protective armor, if you use Overload, you actually break through those armor or shield faster. But in general, Overload is not really recommended for like small enemy combat, like in this kind of abyss, because enemy get thrown around, they get displaced. And for those of you who know anything about like abyss and stuff, you want your enemies to be grouped together and not thrown over the place. So in general, it's a good reaction. It's more for bosses, and yeah. But like I said, it's fun to blast people off. But for a practical sense, it is a bit lacking because of everything that's being thrown around and stuff like that. Right, your enemies get flung all around. But I said it's still not the worst thing in the world. Especially on, like, see the dog didn't get flung, right? So like enemies that don't get flung around actually is not that bad, right? But yeah, that's basically Overload. All right, next one I'm going to show you is one of my favorites actually. It's called Electro-Charged. All right, so this is Electro-Charged is basically a combination of Hydro and Electro. This is my favorite variation, which is what we call the Taser Team. And I want you to show you how it works. Basically, what happens is that when enemies have Hydro, when enemies around a certain area has Hydro, if you were to use an Electro attack, there's going to be shocks of Electro that's going to shoot through those with Hydro. Right, so it's basically a very good AoE reaction. Doesn't do the most damage, but it gives a lot of AoE, and it's basically a lot of like a lot of instances over time kind of damage. All right, so we're just setting up. So you notice this this blue lightning streak that you see. This is basically the Electro-Charged reaction. So because both of them are Hydro and one person gets attacked by Electro, then the Electro is going to travel through the wet people. So that's basically Electro-Charged. Like I said, it's pretty fun. You know, let's see this group over here. Then you just attack all around, and then they're going to get Electro-Charged as well. Okay, the next few I'm going to show you is they're not really damaging reactions. They are basically, but they do scale off EM. So the first one would be Crystallize. Crystallize is the combination of, it's basically the Geo version of Swirl. Is when you combine Geo with Pyro, Cryo, Electro, and Hydro. So what happens is that when you mix these two elements, something's going to happen. All right. So as you see, this enemy has Hydro. Because Zhongli is about to use a Geo Pillar, you see the Crystallized reaction, and then there'll be a crystal on the floor over there. And if you pick up that crystal, basically you get a small mini shield, a crystal shield. It's kind of it's kind of weak. I'm not gonna lie. This crystallized shield, as you can see, is kind of weak. The only character in the game that would make use of the crystallized reaction properly would be Navia, because her whole kit centers around Crystallize. So unless you have Navia, I wouldn't really play this Crystallize at all. If you want to know, you know the strength of the shield increases with EM of the Geo character, but yeah, unless you're playing Navia, don't bother this reaction. That's the hard truth. Okay, we're gonna talk about two more reactions. All right. Okay, one is damaging. Okay, so the next reaction I talk about actually doesn't fall under any of these three categories. This is actually the freeze reaction. The reason why is because freeze doesn't do any damage. So it's technically not one of the three classifications. But yeah, freeze is basically you put you combine cryo and hydro. That basically freezes your enemy in spot. They gain this thing called a frozen or freeze aura. And yeah, for a certain amount of time they will not be able to move unless you apply pyro to melt them, or you use a blunt attack onto them. So what are blunt attacks? Claymore, Geo, Overload, Swirl. Right, the Swirl, the okay, not really Swirl, but the plunging attacks. So plunging attacks, sorry, not Swirl. So in this case, Garming, he is a Claymore character. What's he going to do is that okay, let me push this back a little bit. Garming is a Claymore character. When a Claymore character hits a frozen enemy, right, it's going to create another reaction that's pretty mediocre, to be honest. It's called the Shatter reaction. This reaction doesn't have any like word that appear. So yeah, but you notice that once you shatter somebody, sorry, this player sucks. I need to change my play to like VLC. But you will notice that when you use a blunt attack like a claymore attack onto a character with that's frozen, the ice is going to shatter. All right, you can see that the ice shattered, and then yeah, it basically does additional damage. Like I said, it's not really like the most interesting reaction, but I think it's good to know that it exists. All right, so yeah, you can see the ice that falls apart. Right, that is basically the that's basically Shatter. So yeah, that's about it. I think that's all the reactions that we have. Like I said, freeze is freeze. It's not really reaction that we should take note of. But anyways, hopefully this was a good video. It took me a lot of research and a lot of trying to find my thoughts, trying to explain all the reactions in as simple as possible. I hope you like it. Do let me know if there's anything that you also like, or if there's any improvements that I could make. I really appreciate you coming by. If you like this video, once again, thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Link is down in the description below for my Twitch. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, be good to yourselves and the people around you. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.